He's definitely brutal. He's always savage, and you're definitely getting wrecked.
What's sad is that, as you say, that doesn't then lead to loads of trophies, but not because the team in any way was bad. Like, after this, basically, you have this period where, as you say, Astralis goes down a bit because they don't attend as many tournaments. But then right when that happens, Team Liquid wins every tournament. And then the other one was Vitality rose up. And essentially, almost every one of these tournaments, dude, you get eliminated by Vitality, Team will going crazy, or Team Liquid just fragging everyone's head off. And at the time, no one could beat them. Like, there are so many seconds, third, fourth, like... Any of these could have been a win. Do you ever look back and feel frustrated? Because I get the feeling, actually, this is also one of the things that changed in ENCE a little bit, right? Once expectations get set, it does matter if you don't win, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, expectations change, and people want more, and they think, like, at that point, usually, you forget what we did the past 12 months, or what we did the past 8 months. Like, after that, you start to think that... you need that something in order to win because you're making these high runs. But yeah, I mean, to me, I'm not saying that... Like, I felt frustrated about the fact that we didn't win trophies. But I'm not saying that we lost... Like, usually if I lose or we lose, and we're so far, like, far in the tournament, and we lose, and I know the team... Like, we're stronger than the team we're facing. That really sucks. But sometimes we were usually not, we were just not able to have that last step of us being considered the favorites, you know? Like, usually it was Astralis the favorites, Liquid were the favorites. Like, we were never the favorites. Obviously, that kind of like gives us a chance to beat, because we don't have the pressure, we're the underdogs. But for us, it kind of felt like we wanted to take that. We wanted to take the... like, put Finnish scene on the map and be the #1 team, you know? Like, we could never do that, and we were missing that something. And, you know, small things can happen that makes you win a trophy or makes you the champions, but, you know, that never happened, and I don't want to find excuses for it.
Is there like a specific one of these events? Obviously, look, these are amazing teams. Everyone remembers Z. He got the Player of the Year that year, guys. And this is part of the reason why in every big playoff match, it felt like he went crazy. And Team Liquid obviously won all of these tournaments, except like CS Summit. That was like the only one they didn't win, right? They won all these lands at the time. Is there like one, like I think it was maybe DreamHack Dallas was the close one or something. Is there one you remember where like you should have won?
I think it was Dallas.
I think that was the close final, wasn't it, Resin?
Or wait, but was it Dallas or... No, IEM Chicago, we got completely stomped.
They wrecked everyone there, yes. That was the one where they beat you so hard in like 2 maps. It was basically over already.
Yes, I remember Dallas. Dallas was the one where they won the... what's it called? The 4 in a row.
No, that was a Cologne. They got the 4th. But
that was Cologne?
It'll be the 3rd then. It might be the 3rd title.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but yeah, true, Dallas. But I don't remember... I just remember that at that time, like, the vibe started to... Like, towards the end, the vibe started to switch, I felt like. Like, it didn't feel like everything was new. It didn't... Like, it kind of... At that point, I kind of started to already feel that they're starting to become like tension on the team, not only like between me and someone else, but there was like these groups in the team that I felt like when we lost a game, you knew that some people went to talk with each other and you weren't like involved or something. Like, it was just everything changed. And as you said, more expectations, people want to win more. That's just how sports work, right? But the thing for me was I remember early days and all this time like way better than the later days.
Right.
And most likely because I remember when I got the news that I'm benched, it kind of was like a shock to me because I've never been in that moment in my career. And the thing is that I made all the happiest parts of my life and my career and all these like life-changing moments with this team, and we played for a long time. So I feel like towards the end of this team, I kind of maybe like unconsciously removed a lot
blocked
of
them out, right?
this moment.
The trauma
Exactly.
that's blocked out. Let me ask you
Yes.
this question then, because one of the things that never was able to be said publicly, because this is the silliest thing about how ENCE handled that back then, is they not only removed you, and even then they removed you after a major where you guys still made the top 8, but the way that they did it was so silly because they never explained like what happened or what the reason was, and then stupidly they did that stupid thing where like Ariel was like, was that been fun, lol, or whatever, and then they got Sonny in, and because they never had any results, famously became a meme, and it came back to bite them. Right behind the scenes, I can tell you, in the scene, if you asked around, they used to say some story about you. Look, they might have been salty. You can tell me if this is bullshit. The story they told me went like this. They were like, oh, well, because we'd had all these seconds and thirds, we obviously thought, right, for the major, we have to do like a fucking massive boot camp, and we all have to go hard as fuck. And then they made you sound like a diva. They were like, and then Aleksi was like, oh, I want to like have time off with my girlfriend or something. And then they were like, oh, fuck, it's the major, bro. And then they told him, right, you fucking benched. And then people don't remember this. At that major, wasn't it something like at the major you already knew you were going to get kicked or something like you already knew before the event? So wasn't it something weird like that? Give me your version of it. This is just what they were saying back then. Again, I don't know how much is BS or salty. You tell me.
So basically, I'm pretty sure that some of the people within the team made the choice, and some of the people, like I think, could be wrong, but at least what I've heard, like at least one or two, like didn't even know it's gonna happen, or maybe they were asked about like their opinion, but you know, did like you always have these players in team that don't really take.
They just sit out. They don't make the votes. Yeah, exactly.
Discussions.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, but basically, after that, I kind of felt like backstab because I'm always like a type of guy that wants to hear up front. But I mean, everyone is. It's always not nice to hear the news. You know, like when you least expect it. But yeah, the thing is that I don't remember about this bootcamp stuff or anything.
Okay.
I doubt it because the thing is that we were still a strong team. I feel like I knew that, as I told you about the tension and about like the small stuff that kept happening within the team. Like, I wouldn't say bullying, but like, how can I say? You get weird vibes. Like weird vibes, and you kind of like could read between the lines. And I was so naive back then, actually, that I should have just, as soon as I got the news, and the very next day, I was just talking with my parents or my friends. I was like, "How the fuck am I so naive to this? Like I should have seen this coming from a mile away, you know, like from how people were acting and all this stuff." So the team atmosphere was definitely not where it should have been or where it was like for a long time within our team. So there was definitely like loss of trust or something was wrong, and some people made their decision, and yeah, they wanted to make it happen before the major, or they was like, we understand if Aleksi doesn't want to play, but of course I wanted to play. Like, I don't care. Like, as soon as I got the news, it was a shock, but after like a couple days, they were asking me like, "Do you still want to play the major?" I was like, "What? Of course I'm gonna play the major." If like, I thought I'm not even able to play the major.
Oh,
so I'm glad they gave me that.
Right.
Like I don't like my brain just went offline when I heard the news back then. But then when I realized I could still play the major, I felt so confident just going in there, and I just remember we went 3-0 on the legend stage, and. Yeah, shame we play Renegades. I think we're gonna win this major if we're not.
Let me ask you this question then, because one thing people forget is not only did you go 3-0, you were fragging out in the Swiss. You were actually like top
that's
fragging.
What I mean. Like,
and then as you say, the bracket, bro, both ENCE and Vitality should look at this major and be like, we're both idiots. Because if you remember, Vitality got a Vanguard, and bro, like if they had 0 against Jam back then, was like that should have been game over, but they blew that game. And then you had Renegades. Look, Renegades is like a good team, but you're the one that are in all the finals. Like this bracket should be like a free route to the final again. It should be another Astralis final, right?
Yeah, for sure. And maybe that would even make it seem even more odd if we're gonna make a player change. And of course, like changing IGLs, I've seen it too many times after the ENCE, after I got benched from ENCE, and how ENCE was after that, and how other teams have succeeded or failed when doing a change like this, I feel like it is really rarely only the IGL's fault. Even though I'm speaking on behalf of myself, you could fucking throw the ENCE team out of the window. You can find many examples from other teams. But the thing is that it's so much easier to think that the grass is greener somehow if someone else is taking the lead. Especially players that haven't done it or have been on the side. Like, trust me, if I would not be a leader, if I would be a second caller, it would be so easy. Like, the thing I think about the most is, imagine you have a couple rounds you know when to call. Like, as an IGL, you usually have those rounds, like you can call any IGL. Like, after winning a round in middle, like from a default, you always have these feelings in the back of your head that this is gonna work 100%. And as a second leader or like a second voice in the team, it's so easy to see how the game is going, and then at one point be like, "Oh yeah, now it's gonna work," and then you're gonna succeed with the round because obviously it was a good call or you knew when to call it. But all these other 10 rounds or 14 rounds, or like when we're losing rounds and the opponent have the momentum, like it's suddenly becomes way harder to think about how you play and what you're gonna call next and all this different stuff. So I think that a lot of the times I've seen this moment where like the second voice in the team is taking the lead, and it's not the same. Like, it's not the same at all, and it's way harder. Like, people undervalue how much you're throwing away from the window if you're actually gonna take a lot of the leading traits, which means like maybe jumping in first or playing with shittier weapons or thinking about utility, thinking about money, thinking about your own moves, thinking about how to move your players in different scenarios. It just becomes much harder to focus on your own game. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents for this discussion, because I feel like if you're making deep runs like that, like I don't think that any team is able to change only the leader and keep up the same work. Like, it can happen that they will take a dip, like a higher dip, and then work their way back up. But in order to like go from number 2, number 3, number 4 to win trophies, I think it's really hard just changing the leader only. So maybe they needed also to change something else in order for that lineup to change.
The crazy thing is, like, when this move happened, I remember even trying to argue with ENCE people even afterwards, like, well, why did he kick the guy out? And that's why they were always just like blind, like, we had to do it. Right, here's the problem with this move. Because the ENCE move project was so bad after that, everyone will forget what their idea was. Their idea wasn't terrible, Aleksi. The idea went like this, as you said, because Alu, especially as the AWPer, was the big second voice, and like that, he got to make the calls when it made sense. By the way, in his reflections, he even now admits it was a mistake and exactly that phenomenon you're talking about. Like, it just seems easier when you're the second caller. Like, every call you make's right because you don't have to make the hard calls when you don't know what to do. And then the other part people forget is Sonny also used to be a secondary caller in most of his teams. So their logic was, we're going to upgrade some skill while keeping all the other players. We're going to have 2 people who've sort of secondary called. So between the 2 of us, we'll figure it out. And then, like, it'll just be a better, different version of the team. But the thing I always didn't get was this. Bro, this is like, it's not even like the team had failed except that like weird result against Renegades. Like, the results are phenomenal. Like, you're in something like 4 or 5 finals. Like I say, the only teams that are beating you, by the way, are like Prime Astralis, Prime Team Liquid, Vitality with Zewu, like, and then this one loss to Renegades, this weird team that's like a kryptonite. Like, that's like one of the worst, like, grass is greener, because it's like, mate, how much better can the grass get? Like, unless we're literally going to become the best team in the world, we're already in a good spot. And in fact, I always thought the reason why it's insane they kicked you is because if if you go back and look at that lineup, I know you have a lot of affection for those players, but there's a reason why they haven't gone on and been in like FaZe Clan since then, and most of them haven't had a career after ENCE. Like, it was in that team that they were really dope. Like, they all fit together. In fact, even like the style of how you played a lot around team play and setups and two-man setups and stuff. This team, like, that's one of those examples, you know, the saying of like more than the sum of their parts. Like, it wasn't like you just add together the individual stats of this team. Together it became an elite team. So I mean, look, obviously you would agree, but they kind of threw away something silly there. Like, I would love to do the run back on time. Maybe you wouldn't because you won the major now, but I would like to just know what happens if they don't kick Aleksib. They just give it 6 more months. That would be interesting, right? I'd like to know.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting, but for sure something needed to happen in terms of communication. Like, we needed to look each other in a sauna and speak like, what's the fucking problem now? Like, can we fix and still play together, or why is the tension so high? Like, why does it feel like we cannot function together as a team?
Did you ever have like a later on, answer that, but did you ever have a later on, did you ever actually get to have like a head-to-head years later with Alu and just figure out what the fuck happened? Did you ever do it?
I mean, yeah, he called me once, and we had a really decent discussion. I remember that call as if it was yesterday, and it wasn't like, it was a man-to-man call, you know, and I really appreciate that. So yes, that kind of call has happened. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I forgot what I was saying.
What the team would have had to do to fix the communication?
Yeah. Also, like, it's just like, I don't think it would have worked, because the thing is that they gave, like, why you say ENCE needed to do it is someone gave an ultimatum where it was like either this guy or us, or either him or me, and obviously, like, you need to do something as the organization at that point, and we started in ENCE and we stuck with ENCE for a long time, knowing that our player contracts were not nearly as good as all these other teams were beating or something, and we were appreciative because we knew that ENCE took a chance on us. Like, they were paying us some money even though we were fucking not doing anything for 6 months, you know. So of course we knew that we needed to give this back to them, but the thing was that we were with them from the start, and Alu has been behind the scenes in ENCE for a long time. So it was just like an easy, like, in that team you could go to the management and say like, this guy or us. Where I feel like right now, with like how professional things have gotten, I don't think that can really be the case anymore. Or if it can, I think it's like a pretty big problem from the GM or something. But I just want to jump into one of the things as well, like about the IGL thing and changing IGL. One other thing which I think that Alu and Sunny, like, let's say this team only plays tournaments with a little bit of practice, I think they can make it work, like have a really good tournament here and there. Sure. Like, we were already making deep runs. But the thing is that once you go home and practice, this is the hardest part, because this is when people wake up tired to the PC. They don't give their best on practice, or, you know, you have, if you play 6 times a week, you have like 2 days at least where you completely feel like a guy is missing, or even 2 guys, like they're focusing on something else or whatever. And at these times, the leading figure, or the guy who, when the group is dead silent on freeze time or something, like at these times, I think, like, what I've heard after the fact as well is that they could get into some really intensive arguments in practice. And that wasn't like us early days of ENCE. So for sure the expectations went up, and even when they didn't get results with Sunny, I think they ran into some bigger arguments, and just like the team atmosphere and everything let everyone down, and it was just like downhill from there. And those are also the moments when you might sometimes need a guy, because it might, on other teams I've been in, sometimes it's the coach, and you really appreciate the coach at that point, because a lot of coaches like to be silent, and a lot of coaches like to, I would say, not do their job. Like, they are not pulling their own weight if they cannot see those situations. or when they cannot take a pause, or when they cannot make a talk in between practices, or something like this. So if you leave all those things also on the IGL, that's like you're going to a path that there's no coming back if you don't have that figure in the team who's like handling those situations.
When you then went after this, people will forget this, but the one good thing about getting caught right after the major is the exact same thing happened to NBK in that Vitality match we're talking about. He had his own issues. They instantly caught him. He was even announced immediately that he was cut straight out of the team. And I know behind the scenes, I was even messaging him, like, what are you going to do for a team? And then already he had this plan. It was like, right, it was like you and him or something and connected. And then I think he was the one who knew maybe OG or something. And immediately a team was starting to form, right? And there was like, could be Valde. And people don't know, the initial lineups, I remember him telling me, was just the exact same OG team, but without mantuu, because famously it was going to be Jamppi before people knew about the VAC ban, then Poison before Complexity bought, and then eventually he got to mantuu, this whole sort of. So it sounds like actually pretty quickly after you've been benched, like these talks are starting to happen, right?
Yes, and yeah, I remember it was in Berlin Major already. I was speaking with NBK. He reached out to me. And obviously the project felt really good at that time. But it was the leap of moving away from Finland. But it felt obvious because there was no number 2 in Finland.
Sure.
Like it was pretty non-existent in terms of international international skill. But the thing is, I knew I needed to do a leap of faith in terms of like changing the language and going into something where it's most likely going to be 5 different cultures, and it's gonna be way harder. But I feel like OG was a stepping stone in my career, and also like a bit of shame that like COVID happened and it was a lot of online games and all this stuff. But I do think about like those memories are really stuck to me because I learned some valuable lessons. It was the first time I went international. I played with amazing guys, and it's just like these COVID times, like online times in your head that you kind of feel like you were grinding a lot, but this team was not meant to be to like be number 1 or fight for even though we tried our best. But like now thinking about it after the fact, maybe the lineup didn't have what it takes, even though we reached a final or 2. But it's just the fact that, yeah, we made what we possibly could, and it was a learning step in my career of how to start to think about other cultures and like working with like really different players, and how does it even work.
I've got a quick what if. As I just suggested there, one of the first names was Jamppi, another Finnish person. And if people don't know, there's 2 details here that sometimes people aren't aware of. Even though everyone laughed at him when he did that like lawsuit against Valve, people don't seem to realise that did seem to actually be the thing that eventually spurred Valve later to change their mind about the VAC bans, which, if you don't know, by the way, guys, is the reason Yimpat now gets to play Counter-Strike, and Torji as well. And in fact, if you don't know, Jamppi himself could come back. The problem is he has a successful Valorant career, so he's not going to do it. So there's a world where either you didn't know about the VAC ban, or maybe he could have gotten unbanned, right? If he could have been the AWPer, no offense to mantuu, because we'll talk about it in a minute, but like you said, he wasn't an AWPer. He was sort of figuring out the role, and he had to do a new thing. If Jamppi could have been the AWPer in this team, I feel like that could have been like a very interesting move, because I remember when he went to ENCE briefly, dude, he was pretty good. Like, he actually looked like he had some real potential.
Yeah, we actually practiced a couple games, and then it was a weird moment because, yeah, we heard about this VAC ban, and then OG's had some Valve contacts.
Oh, of course.
And
the Ogs won LTI and stuff, sure, of course.
Yes. I wasn't like too familiar with all the behind the scenes. It was NBK and the OG staff mostly handling this. But it was like, yeah, we're gonna like do a full background check and everything. And then Jamppi kind of went cold, and it was just the feeling that maybe he wasn't. We practiced like 2 days or something, and then we realized, wait, something's up, and it didn't reach the finish line. And I just sent Jamppi like a message that I don't remember what it read, but something along the lines of like, take care and like all the good to you and blah blah blah. And now we're here, like we're on a WhatsApp group of because we sometimes go play paddle together. It's been a while since, but winning the major, and he also sent like a congratulations message and all this stuff. Like, I'm so happy that he has a good career in Valorant. But yeah, the OG thing almost went through, but yeah, something came on the way. But now we are on, like, maybe it was meant to be for him also.
I want to actually ask a specific question about mantuu, though, because I actually think to this day, because no one told anyone when this signing was made, everyone just heard, right, he was playing in alternate attacks, and then suddenly he's in this team. So everyone just assumed he must have been the AWPer there. And I remember hearing from someone, he's actually never AWPed before. I was like, what? And I went and looked, and he wasn't even the AWPer in that team. They had like some German AWPer. And in your team, basically just started fresh. And so the reason why I want to set that context at the beginning is because I feel like mantuu, once OG got flamed a lot. Because the problem is, I've always said that, in my opinion, the biggest mismatch in a pro Counter-Strike game at tier 1 are the AWPers. Because if you have one that's insane, if you have Monacy and the other guy just has an okay AWPer, that matchup is going to be seen very obvious. Like, you're going to know this guy. Like, the difference with rifles is, if you shoot 3 bullets and he shoots 4, like, you still did damage, you're still helping around. Like, so the problem I always thought is, anyone who doesn't make it to the top as an AWPer, it's going to be obvious. They're going to get so much flame. But you could see when he played at any level below the elite level or like a LAN, he clearly had it. Like, he could shoot the shots. But it's a bit like the concept of what you said about the in-game leaders. In the same way as everyone thinks they can be an IGL if they're secondary called, anyone who's secondary ops thinks, I could do this. Like, I remember the games I've got, but it's the same concept. They remember the games where they're feeling it, they're in the spot, and they AWP some people. They don't remember the games where you have to get that AWP on the first go round. You must get a kill. If you die and you do nothing, you've ruined the whole game. That pressure's different, right? So what I want to ask was this. I always felt like his issue was, he had to essentially just learn to be like an AWPer like that. Like, he didn't have a ramp-up time. He had to immediately be, again, playing all the best teams in the world. Like, what was it like to use this guy? I mean, in some ways it worked, and some ways there was maybe limitations.
I think the biggest strength with him, and I feel like the fact that why I trusted him so much, like, not only is he like one of the best teammates I've ever had in terms of like how he just was as a person, but the fact that he was English, so he could... Right. His communication was like literally perfect. Like, obviously in-game communication is a bit different,
sure,
but it was so easy guiding him or him telling what he needs, or like whatever it was, he had the best English from the whole team. So obviously, like, he can get along with a lot of different stuff that needs to happen in an international team. So that was his strength, because let's say he was not speaking that well, not speaking English that well, and just picking up the AWP and all this new stuff, I think it would have went south like much quicker. And the thing was that he kept, like, the mechanical skill on this guy was insane. Like, I've never seen as crisp aim as he had. And at sometimes I was thinking to myself, like, it's funny that, like, people don't even know he's, like, if not the best, then like the second best rifle on this team. But
right.
Like, he rarely got to play it or to show his rifle skill. But I just remember that he was like this insane raw talent type of guy. But once you go like higher up on this on the tiers and like playing on LAN, playing in front of a crowd, more pressure, and just the fact that the level of CS gets much higher, communication and like that thing I was speaking about like taking the game into your control, you need a lot of experience. And trust me, like, if I would be put on that spot as an IGL, I wouldn't be able to pull it off. So the thing is that this guy, everybody's expecting him to insta pull it off, but it's like likely not gonna happen. There's only been like ZywOo maybe, but he also, I'm not sure how much he played up before he came into, but it's like only 1 or 2 players that can ever do it.
Sure.
So it's like he's picking up the op and making really good progress, and he was playing really good. And yeah, I just feel like the team was so random. Like, we had a lot of different players, a lot of different cultures. He was growing in the team. He was growing with me. He was growing as an AWPer. But I think like Raga, like Casper, the Astralis coach now, like, he said it best to me. I just think that he needed an identity, because when you think about like AWPers or like whether it's whoever it is, It's like mantuu was a guy that picked up something from nothing because we like trusted him to do it. But it's really hard to create your own identity, like how do you want to play and all this different stuff, because you're just learning, you're trying to learn. But at the same time, you need to build your own path, kinda. So I think that's the next step in his career, wherever he ends up in. But he, the OG for him was the learning curve, and the next one is like building his own path and like how he visions everything and how he puts his foot on the door and all this kind of stuff. That's the next chapter.
So I've told this story before. Obviously, the hardest role in Counter-Strike, by definition, to evaluate is in-game leader, because there isn't like a stat. Like, it's not like we have some way of knowing, like, there's not like a kill ADR stat that tells me how well you communicate, how good the strat. Essentially, you have to just know the game, know a little bit about the current meta, and you have to infer that, like, that seems like it was planned, or that was a call, or, you know, it wasn't just someone shooting someone in the head. But I always said, this is why I've never pretended I was like some genius that I like said Aleksib was good years ago. I actually had this crazy advantage, which is one, I worked that blast before we went online and we could hear the comms. And then at Flashpoint, I could hear the comms. So I've actually heard you comm a whole bunch of matches in OG, on LAN and online. I actually heard the whole matches. And what I heard, right, that made me think there was something here to the calls was not only did you make good calls, that I actually realised in this team, this is why I've always said I don't count the results. Like, in the online era, it was all right. The reason why I've never held those results against you when people are like, well, why didn't he win any tournaments? It's like, bro, if you heard these comms, they're fucking nightmare fuel. Like, they're like a bad American pug. Like, here's what would happen when I would hear these comms. Say you're on T-side of DOS 2 or something, or Nuke or something. Right, what would happen is this. It's freeze time. It's like 9-8 in the game, and Aleksi beat, like, normally the IGL starts talking like, you know, like, guys, set up like lobby control, and then we're gonna, if it's nuke or, you know, and then we're gonna like have 2 push outside and then wait for my call, right? As you would go to talk like that, right, you'd say something like, I think we might, and then like MBK would be like, what if this time we hit outside? And then Valde's like, yeah, I actually think maybe I go like to the ladder. Then Issa, by the way, he always cracked me up because all he would come is just whatever he was doing. Like, I'm on the roof now, like, I'm taking a joke, I've died, like, and then everyone was talking the whole time like this. And what would happen for real in loads of these games was when it would get really close, because you used to win a lot of close games, when it would be like 13-13 or 14-14, when the round would start like that, they'd all start doing that same thing again, where they all tried to like, because essentially it's a concept of too many cooks in the kitchen, you know. They're all trying to like add in oregano and a bit of tomato, and like, you can't make the ingredients. And what would happen is, when it was the important round, you would literally say, everyone shut up! And then they go, and then you'd just call like a strat, and then it'd work and you'd win the game. And I was just thinking, like, imagine if they just let him talk the whole time. I used to even joke to you, like, mate, can they just shut up so you can call? Because, like, give me some thoughts. Because here's the thing, like, for MBK and Valde, I know, like, they both tried being IGLs. Like, they have a good mind for the game. Give me some thoughts, because it sounded like wild, mate. It was like a zoo. What the fuck was that shit?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying about these international teams, and especially if you put players together that never did it. NBK never did it, Valde never did it, mantuu never did it, Issa was the only one, actually. But the thing is that everybody wants to bring in something, and trust me, when the pressure gets high, I've noticed this with every teammate, even including myself. When the pressure gets high, it's so hard to not be in control, and you kind of like what's happened, like when you how can I say this? Like, I wanted to give like an example, but I can say this. When you play practice at home, I've had countless of games where I have a teammate that doesn't say anything, and when we go to a LAN, either it's could annoy me that he's like, I feel his pressure because he's speaking stuff that I've never heard him say, or like he's speaking a lot, or the guy impresses me because when I feel like he's in the zone, he's like single-handedly winning rounds or moments or saying crucial stuff that I'm like, holy shit, this guy is like, why can't he play like this every time we're like practicing or whatever? But the thing is, once the pressure gets there, it's so hard to let someone else be in control, even if that's what you are trying to learn, you know? You want to add something just to make sure you don't lose. But the thing is that it might actually be the leading cause of losing, because that's not how you did all the repetitions or how everything went. And I'm not saying that, you know, Valde or NBK or someone did it all the time. I'm not saying that at all.
No.
Sometimes I might overthink a situation, but it's just like natural. And for them, it might have been more natural because maybe they were leading on the past team, or maybe, you know, so when that moment hits, it can definitely happen. But I don't, like, you have a good, you remember these situations good. I don't remember these situations nearly as good as you do. But I just remember that in that team, and definitely in other international teams I've been in, communication is like one of the things you always battle with, and you just try to find this way of making it work and trying to limit all these extra things. And sometimes it's too much, sometimes you can work with it, like you might still have this chaos and end up winning. But sometimes when I'm listening to, I've heard about from some teams, their communications, or I've been like in the tournament area, and I'm like not trying to listen, but it's impossible to avoid listening because you're like walking past or something. There are teams that are really calm or have sick communication or something like that. Or when I was in ENCE, it was a good example for me because I could think about how we communicated in ENCE compared to these other teams. Our communication in ENCE was actually really good. Like I didn't even remember how calm some of the players were, or like the way we communicated small details, or people moved instantly, because like reacted instantly to a communication, because first of all it's easier to understand your own language, but second of all maybe we just had the players that were capable of listening and doing an action. Because trust me, in international teams many players have the problem, even myself, someone is saying crucial info but you don't process it fast enough, and that split second is like in CS you lose rounds only because of those kind of situations. So it's just like, yeah, I kind of went away from what you said originally, but yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Right, I want to ask about a couple of the players in this team, and then we'll move to, like, obviously the G2 era. So one player I do want to ask about is NBK, because the funny thing is I've known him for a long, long time in Counter-Strike, in all the teams he was in, someone I've always talked to. But even I was really skeptical of when, in his later teams, actually even before he joined your team, he kept trying to be the IGL, or he wanted to be the elite at the start, or if someone left, right? And when he would do this, famously in Vitality, for example, they eventually just had that Alex guy obviously take over. But then they said this thing where they were like, but NBK calls on CT side. And I remember telling him, like, bro, like, I'm not, like, that's no such thing. Like, yeah, obviously you can call a rotation, or you can say, like, hey, like, boost me or something. But, like, the CT side's just shooting people and reacting, you know. But I have to say, when I heard the comms, I know what they mean by that now. In this team, like, famously, Issa obviously was one of the people who had more of the difficulty with the communication. And he was someone who, I think on Hellraisers, they probably just let him freelance, do whatever he wanted. Like, it didn't seem like he was used to, like, a tactical system or something. And when I would hear the comms, NBK for real would just coordinate with this guy all the time. Like, if they played Inferno on the A site, he would be telling them, like, right, you're going to sit here and I'm going to sit here, so I have the crossfire, and, like, I'll hold the flash, and then when you see them, tell me. And, like, he actually was kind of doing, like, some, like, almost like some leader type things in the team. What was it like to have NBK with you?
I actually shot him a message, like, after winning the major, that, like, because he was sending me these messages from time to time that, like, you know, keep doing it, like you're gonna win the next match or something like this. It was kind of like nice hearing from him, because I remember in OG, like when we ended up, like NBK ended up getting benched, it was like I had to tell him, like I sent him a message, like he kind of figured it out, and I sent him a message, and I remember it feels fucking awful doing those things, but he kept pushing me, or kept like telling me some stuff like after the fact, and I felt like it was like it takes a man to do that, you know, like even when I was the guy who kind of like told you that we're gonna have a meeting about the future and all this stuff. But the thing is that I told him that all the struggles and all the arguments I've had with this guy, because we did have arguments and we did have disagreements, and both of us can be stubborn at times, and it's just like I felt like he was really like he showed me valuable lessons and like thickened my skin, because trust me,
it can be brutal, yeah.
Like the thicker your skin, the further you will make it, as at least in international teams.
Right.
Because there's been so many teammates that are just so soft, and like I can tell you, like Config is the opposite of a soft guy, but we played in a team that had soft people. Like I just when I joined Navi on the first bootcamp, I was telling to myself in my head, like I have so many teammates from the past that couldn't live a day in this team. Or like if they get criticized like the way you might get criticized like in Navi, it's like you need to understand the culture. Like it's just the way things are handled, you know, like you're getting these blunt comments straight to your face, and NBK could be like that, and that's like also the French culture. And it's just like I told him that it was valuable for me to play with him and for him to be like this. I wouldn't say a mentor, but he would keep me in check. He would go against me. I would go against him, and it felt nice that you had this. You played with this guy who kind of like thickened your skin. Trust me, it did me more good than bad, I feel like.
And then I wanted to ask. Oh, sorry. Do you have a bit more?
No. I just for the in-game stuff, like I felt like he wanted to also implement something, or maybe build a path in his own career, maybe trying more of these leading features and leading on the CT side and whatnot. I felt like he was like a soldier for the team. Like he could do the dirty work, he could do the hard work. The thing was that for me, being a leader and always like kind of like having control of both of the sides, maybe having like a voice on the CT side or a voice on the T side always helps. But like giving control 100% to another guy didn't make me feel that comfortable either, because it's like you're kind of like also leaving a lot to the table, and you're getting pulled away from something that's been like your natural thing for a longer time. So I think we made something that was best of both worlds. Maybe he wanted a bit more. I don't remember all the details that well, but all I'm saying is that if you gave something to him, if it was a job or something, he for sure would always make sure that he tried his best doing that, if you get what I mean. So if we continued OG with him being control 100% on CT side, me 100% on T side, I think we would have made it work, because the guy that I'm giving the control to is not a guy who would bullshit you, or with like that he wouldn't make the job, you know. So at least he's gonna make it like do the work in order for it to happen. But yeah, we had a lot of different views going into OG, but we in the end we made it work, kind of like I felt like we actually, to some extent, we overperformed with that team. We were actually quite high up in the rankings and making some deep runs and winning some best of 3 games against really decent teams, although most tournaments online, but still.
The other player is obviously Valde, because I always feel like people don't know. To me, he was like the gem in this team, because, bro, he did have some of the worst fucking positions in the game, especially on CT side, but he would actually frag out of them. Like, this guy was skilled, right?
Yes, I mean, Valde was the type of guy who I felt like had this. He was carrying this aura that he's like doesn't really care about the game too much. But when you watch him play, it was like so fluid. Like you could see, like I heard the term eye test first time, by the way, from you. But the eye test for him was, or in CS overall, is that when you watch someone, and especially when you spectate him in real life, like it looks even more smooth when you're watching someone from behind, and you can see his action, his head movement and whatever. I feel like he had this swagger in his game. Like he was really smooth. He didn't like I really like these players that are not doing too much with their mouse. Like changing their knife all the time, inspecting, like doing flicks here and there. Like he was just like moving his mouse where it needed to be and just killing the opponent. And I really liked that about him, and he was really calm in his natural ways and the way he spoke. Like he had really good English as well. It's like, yeah, it was like a really solid guy. I've nothing bad
sure.
about the guy. Like he could also, how can I say? He could also like stand his ground. He was not like a push around, and he could also take blame, and he would also criticize himself. He would also criticize others. I think he was like a kind of like a complete player, but yeah, I don't know really like after OG and all this stuff, like if motivation took a shift, or maybe a bad like he hopped into this project on TSM. He's still in TSM, but like the time in between, I'm not sure if he took a break or something, but just like I could still see him play like really solid CS. I'm not sure if he's leading TSM.
He is
right
the
now.
IGL now, yeah.
Yeah, because like again, I feel like he can do it, but you know, like after watching this guy frag out, I feel like he can be an anchor or be like this key role player that can deliver. But I'm not sure. I've never played with him when he's leading, so I can't say anything about that.
Sure. Right, that was obviously that era of OG. We don't really need to talk about the other one because it was even shit when he went to LAN. But there's one player I do have to ask about, which is you had flameZ, the player who's in Vitality now, who's won all these tournaments. I will point out, you had him when he was 17 and then he turned 18. So, like, he was pretty raw. Like, he came fucking endpoint, guys. Like, he wasn't like, again, some of the players you've had in your career, like, it looks like sick to have Monacy and Flame, but these are at the beginning. You have them the beginning. What was baby flameZ like?
I didn't know that what I'm getting into, and I think people in the community pro scene knows. But like, this guy is like he's a funny guy, but he doesn't stop. You know, like he can just go on and on. Like if it's a day of practice, if it's whatever. Like once he wakes up, he needs the 30 minutes, and after that, he's like a kid on Red Bull the whole day, even without taking anything. But I love that about him, and I still do whenever I meet him on tournaments. Always hugs me and instantly cracks a joke, or like he's a guy that brings something to the team and always keeping the communication. He's always keeping the communication up because he's constantly like talking. He's speaking to people. He's keeping everyone active, I would say. But I feel like he was the opposite of Valde in terms of what he would do in game. But it was just like, I don't know, like he could play with different weapons. He could have a situation where he's in between two mollies and a smoke, and he was really versatile at, and still is, at avoiding, taking nice gunfights and doing jumps around the corner, suddenly wide swinging with a pistol, suddenly doing... He's just like... His movement is actually really good. And utility usage as well, like he's using smokes to extinguish and insta-peeking. Like he's kind of like playing this new gen style, I would say. That if you could say that the old gen style is kind of like using your utility to execute and flash opponents, he's kind of like thinking about utility maybe a bit differently, like doing like a lot of situational utility and winning a gunfight because of this or something like that. And yeah, it like Baby flameZ was just like not shy at all, and I really like that about some players, because he's just, as soon as day one starts, he's there to laugh with others. He's there to make a joke himself, and he's not like a shy guy, what you would imagine like a kid to be, or what I was when I was 17. Like I don't think I was, I like could have been as vocal as him day one. So yeah, that's him.
Right, when you got this call up to go to G2, right, I have to ask something initially about the setup of this, because if people don't know, obviously this is already when I already thought, like, right, I'm buying the Aleksi stock while it's low, while everyone's a hater. Like, I'm going to say, if people don't know, I not only said a million times they should sign you, because they needed like an in-game leader. Remember, Nexa was doing it, but at the time he was like, he's an all right in-game leader, he's nothing bad, but you could see in that team, they lacked a little something. It was like all carried by NiKo, if you remember that year, and then Hunter was pretty good. It's like, they needed changes, right? There's a few angles to this. One, I did tell Carlos from G2 a million times, just sign the Aleksib guy. Like, if you get that guy, because he already told me he was getting Monacy, I was like, get this in-game leader as well, it'll all be good. The reason why it worries me what happened in G2 is because right before you were signed, when I'd even heard that you're going to be signed at the end of the year, Hunter did that interview where he said something like, there'll be no roster changes in the team. And that makes it feel to me like, there's no way he didn't know, bro. He had to have known. It was already known thing that you were going to be signed. That made it seem like maybe they didn't want you to sign, or they wanted Nexa to stay, or Hunter wants to do something. And so when this team happens, people know you only got like 7 months or something, 7-8 months of time. Like, I think I counted it once. It wasn't that many lands, bro. It was something like 6 or 7 lands. And then you look, like, a couple of them were good, a couple bad. Right? When you came into this team, do you feel as though when you came in, it was like a proper project where everyone's like, right, we're starting at square one, was there any resistance or any kind of weird tension? Did you get a feel like maybe people didn't want you there? What do you think about the joining of G2?
I think that they did something new because they bring JACKZ, and maybe they gave him a lot of keys to the team, and they were way more in touch with him than others, because I think the management, we had Jerome, who was also French.
Sure.
He was friends with JACKZ, and I think they had a plan together, like how to make the team work, and I could feel like a bit left out from these discussions because they were speaking French to each other and whatever, and they had a plan together. But the thing is that what I felt like day one was a problem, and I actually got asked about it, but I don't think my voice mattered because I was still not signed to the team. But it was like between AMANEK and JACKZ, and they were thinking about what's the best. But the thing was that AMANEK fit the roles that we needed, but JACKZ was and is known for like these qualities of being a really good teammate, and
Sure.
And
It'll be the bait and all that stuff everyone likes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, kind of like that. But I could see from like 1 or 2 tournaments in, like even like when we started practicing, I was a bit skeptical about the decision because of just the roles and how things work. Because JACKZ was like playing as an anchor kinda, and I don't think that's his role at all. But we had a vision and we went with it, and I was like thrilled to be in this team. So I was not like thinking about it too much. But after a couple tournaments, I could feel that, you know, when we were playing in ENCE, for example, when I talked about building this lineup, we were speaking about like getting these people in these roles, and we trusted that they could, like, they're doing their role like really good. I'm not saying JACKZ wasn't doing his role good. All I'm saying is that I don't think it was a coincidence when HooXi got signed in the team with JKS that they had instant success. Because I just think that the Kovac cousins, everybody knows how good they can be. But the thing is that in order for a team to function, sometimes you need missing pieces. They needed a new IGL they trusted. Maybe they lost some trust with me, or maybe they just needed something fresh. But also on top of that, they got an anchor player, and JKS is like a world-class anchor player, especially in like when you get on the stage. So for me, it was, I think at that point they made a really good decision. But obviously I cannot blame everything on this thing.
Of course.
I felt like this was the number one thing, because I would have loved to have JACKZ playing on the roles that he was most comfortable in. If you ask him right now, I don't think he was comfortable in the roles he was in G2.
Right.
For sure he was not. Like, it could happen with any other player who just gets put somewhere, and then you don't have results. Like, what do you think the guy's gonna think? Like, obviously he doesn't like the roles because he never played them. And also the fact that he didn't have the best English either.
Oh,
so it's
yes,
like
yes.
you're playing the key positions. You kind of like sometimes need to say important info to others. Maybe it can be harder at times. All these different things. But I think that was the biggest missing dynamic in the G2 lineup I played in. But also I feel like individually and in like mentally, I wasn't there. I feel like I don't know why, but I feel like when I'm thinking about this time and my mental state and like the way I just handled myself, I was like losing it in real life. Like I don't know what the fuck happened to me, but I felt like I was not in at my best in terms of like how I was mentally. Maybe it was also the fact that you had this way bigger pressure you never felt in your life, because kind of like OG, ENCE OG, I was like going up, and now people think something about me, and you're getting this, like especially in G2 where you have the most fans out of international teams, I would say.
Yeah.
You suddenly get this backlash, or not backlash, but like this opposite side of the coin, how it can feel. And then also not delivering, like kind of like losing trust in yourself, feeling like you are not in control of the team. And I feel like as an IGL, if that ever happens to you, it's not gonna work. Because you need to be able to work with the coach. You need to be able to not be left out or getting this feeling that something bigger is always happening behind you. You're not really involved in these talks that you really need to be in and need to hear, you know? That I just felt like I wasn't there mentally, and it was just not meant to be at all. Even though I feel so good about all the players I played with, and I felt to myself, how the hell am I not getting it work with these pieces? When I kind of felt like on other teams I might have not have the best pieces, but we had one unit, we had a vision, and I felt like I performed better as a team in OG than in G2. Even though we had like this Katowice run, which I always remember, like how we ended up losing to FaZe with a stand-in, but like I didn't win any trophies, that's a fact.
Yeah,
I didn't play the best, that's the fact. But the thing is that I also felt like now that I reconsider everything, I'm just happy I got the chance like later in Navi, but that and NiP, it started to look really bad all of a sudden to like my whole career and everything that I've been worked with. So I kind of like went through both sides of the coin, and as I said previously, like built a thicker skin, or actually reflected in some of the arguments I had with past teammates, or like I actually needed to like fucking think about like why is this happening, and I had deep discussions with my friends also who kind of like gave their observation, and like I would talk to them, and I have some good friends who are always like not being the yes man, like kind of like telling me like, Aleksi, maybe it's this or that or something like this. And yeah, I mean, that's what I felt also like after winning this major. That's what I felt like, me making these changes and actually like reflecting on my past was probably the reason why I actually fucking won something again, you know? Because it was a long time.
Sure.
And trust me, when I kept reading these comments about everyone, about how is this team not working and why are they not winning, obviously you start to think like, with you might know what the underlying issues of the team are, but you start to think about yourself, and that's where you start losing it, you know? And right now I'm in a way better place in terms of that. Like I've learned about it, I've spoken to professionals about it, and now I feel like I'm like handling myself as a much better adult, or someone that I like want to be, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me ask about that tournament, though, because the mad thing is the first real LAN was Katowice. You got to the final, and Pete, this is what everyone forgets, right? The score will say 3-0. bro, this is one of the only 3-0s. I mean, fully if there was the IEM Sydney that Carrigan had against Astralis, that was the same thing a few years earlier. This is one of the few 3-0s where the team that lost 0-3 could have won 3-0. Like, it was, every map was so insanely close. Obviously, everyone remembers, like, the ESL even made a fucking video about the Mirage one, mate, where it just keeps going forever and becomes like a movie or something. Like, this match was amazing. I have to say, I watched it. It was one of the craziest games ever. And if you ever think of them, I mean, the joke is they had JKS winning clutches in some of these games, right? They were just winning miracle rounds, Carrigan calls, like fucking brokey shit going all over. Like, look, I know it sucks to lose, but it must have been an amazing match. Like, I bet you thought you could win it.
No, like when I saw the confetti start blowing up, and I was behind my monitor, like looking at the other side, seeing them celebrate. Like it was one of these moments in life where you're thinking, like, are you living a dream? And by the way, the same thing happened when I won the major. So that's the good thing as well. Like, not everything is sad, but it's like, is this really happening? Like, how did we just lose the game? And you also take into the consideration, like, they had a stand-in, all these different things, but it just felt impossible to lose this game. And I felt like, obviously they played well, and I feel like Carrigan is the only IGL that can ever make it happen with these stand-ins. But still, now when I'm thinking about it, especially watching the ESL movie about Mirage, I just felt like it is probably one of the best, like, top 3 games of my career,
mega.
even though I lost.
Yeah, it's mega.
You know, like, it's easily top 3. And it was competitive as hell. Like, it was back and forth. It was really good for the fans, I would say. And, you know, I don't know. But still, I felt like we should have won that. And maybe everything would have taken a different direction within that whole lineup. But, yeah, that's just what reality is.
Obviously, I want to ask you about NiKo at some point. So I want to ask in this very particular way before I ask about him as a player, which goes like this. Just making that final and having an awesome performance would buy a lot of teams and game leaders loads of time. You'd get loads of it. People would be like, fuck, if we could do that. And obviously later on you had like the semi at Blast. There was some results here and there, right? But I always felt like one of the other reasons you were in a really, really high pressure scenario in G2 is because not only had G2 not won tournaments for years, but NiKo at this point in his career, you have to remember, guys, not only hadn't won a major, he never won Katowice, and he never won Cologne. He never won the big ones. He's a guy who everyone would already put in a Hall of Fame. He's probably like already a top 5 player ever, you know. But every single fucking tournament, every Katowice, every Cologne, and every major, all everyone says, they do it to this day, dude. Yeah, I bet you when he lost to you, everyone did it as well. Like, NiKo hasn't won the major. That's all everyone talks about. So if you are NiKo and you're his team, you are sort of always aware that, like, it's not okay to come second. It just isn't. Like, seconds for normal players. He has to win. Did you feel when you were playing with him that there's this pressure there that, like, if you play with NiKo, I mean, even if he plays bad, people are going to blame you if he loses. You know what I mean? Like, you have to win if you play with NiKo, is the perception.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I got pressure from NiKo that much. And there is a lot of, like, sometimes I read some like, what people think, like, the type of guy NiKo is, but I feel like he's like the voice that a player should have if you are that caliber of a player, you know? Like, if I played with Simple as well, like, and I played with Allu as well, and I feel like all these players, like, they, like, imagine me going to a Finnish team now, and I would not, like, and week 2 they would see, like, wait, this guy's not bringing anything to the team. Like, not even any spice, you know? Like, at least be mad at us or something. So the thing about NiKo is, like, I was expecting that when I joined the team. Like, of course you're gonna expect that. Like, you're gonna be dumb as hell if you don't. And I'm not saying NiKo is, like, flaming you or something.
Sure.
But you kind of, like, want him to say something.
Yes.
You want, like, you're looking up to this guy, like, for many years. Then you would join a team and this guy is, like, not talking or something. Like, how like, I would tilt the fuck out of the planet if that happened. So it's like, I would say that he always did the most in order to succeed. He was also, like, mentoring m0NESY a lot. Like, a lot of, I think m0NESY listened to him a lot, and NiKo could criticize him a lot. And I think that also made the player m0NESY is right now. And I could just see NiKo, like, I remember back like when we played with Monesi, obviously he made insane highlights and all this stuff, but NiKo was like kind of also mentoring him during practice and all this stuff, like saying small things here and there. But now when I see him, like Monesi playing his like hard out in these games that they've played lately, I just see like sometimes this relief on NiKo's face. Like I kind of feel like he's feeling this of like, look what this guy has become now. Like he's like winning these clutches like constantly.
Sure.
Like every time I'm opening Twitter when they play, it's like Monesi 1-on-3, and I see that it's like 11-11 or something, that they would have lost the game without this clutch, you know? And even 1-on-5 against us, like not many times in my career I've lost a 1-on-5, but he managed to do it. But the thing about NiKo is that I feel like he's been unlucky in his career, and I feel like he's been unlucky in terms of what I also said previously. If you want a player of that caliber or any caliber to win, you need a solid leader and you need some solid pieces. And when I was in G2, I feel like we were missing a piece when it came to everything being perfect on paper. And when I saw that they got everything perfect on paper, when they got an IGL and they got an anchor player, and he was playing with his cousin, and Monesi was fucking 6 months into this team, before they won, I would tell my friends they're gonna win, even though they felt sad for me because I got kicked, and they were like patting me to the back or saying something. I would say that the funny thing is that I'm probably gonna get twice as much hate because I didn't win a trophy, but they are most likely gonna win because on paper they're looking strong as hell right now. But then I don't know, like they won a couple games, they took a huge dip when they failed to qualify for Rio, and I think that took a big toll on this team, like overall mentality and everything. But yeah, nothing bad to say about NiKo, to be honest. Like I feel like I learned a lot as well from him.
Let me ask the fun question about NiKo then, which goes like this, because I actually knew already. It wasn't like people saying, like, oh, they were having mad arguments, who's telling what? Of course not. But here's what I want to know, though. People have obviously seen what he's like when he's on form in a game. But I've heard also, this is one of those guys where when you play in scrims, they just do, like, impossible shit that, like, if you could record, but it'd, like, blow people's minds. Is it true?
It's very true. It's only 3 players, like, I've ever seen it happen, is Simple, NiKo, and Monesi. No offense to anyone else, but these players would make the most insane highlights in practice, even on official, and that makes it even crazier. Like I think I've witnessed more Monesi shenanigans on official than on practice. But the thing is that just the one tapping ability, or like you see the play, like the guy have a gunfight where he decides to one tap the opponent, and you know that any other player in the team or on the server would still keep holding their mouse one.
Of course.
You know, like, it's just like those moments, like, there has been many moments that situation happens and the round isn't over, but people are typing in team chat, like, smiley faces or haha or something, like, oh my god, or something like...
Sure.
I don't think people did that too much when I'm clutching, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, that just happens to like 5 players in the scene.
Sure. What about this then? As you said, you didn't have the same. I always point this out. You had Monesi when he hadn't even played a real LAN, guys. I think he'd maybe played like We Play Academy or something. That was it. Like he'd never played like real, and he went to Katowice and he was already like good. But here's the difference. I'll give the obvious contrast. You just played like real Monesi in that fucking major semi-final, mate. That guy, I think, is the best player in the world. He's fucking unbelievable now. Like now he has become like. He is getting close to like what a Simple was. He's taken over the game. He has his own. You can see in the rounds, he now knows what to do and what to do in every situation. He knows when he can put himself in danger, when he should come out. He hits every shot you can hit as an AWP. That's not the player you had. Like, listen, you had an amazing rookie, but give me some contrast. Who was the Monesi you had?
I think the biggest shift for like, obviously he was learning some maps. He didn't play some maps or played. He was starting to play his permaban, which was Nuke. He started to play with us. And also on some of the maps, like obviously just the skill or the way his past team played the map maybe was completely different to ours. And we were still like having like my vision, NiKo's vision, Ecstasis vision, and like just like starting the team and seeing like how we're gonna build this from scratch. But for him, I think that the biggest difference I see is that when I sometimes get to walk past them, or the version I see from himself, like a super confident guy, and he's speaking a lot in game right now. Like I feel like he has so much confidence in all the moves he's doing right now that I feel like maybe when he started to play with us, maybe when you're feeling a bit shy or everything is new and you're playing with players that you have looked up to, I know he looked up to NiKo, for example, it's like you might be a bit scared to offer all these things you wanted to do, because you kind of want to show how good you are, but you are not like you're not creating all these different ideas all the time, you know. Like he was doing it a lot on FaceIt with his friends. I just always remember him guiding his friends and winning every single FaceIt he played. But the thing is that now I feel like he's doing it constantly with the G2 lineup. So I just feel like he built this immense amount of confidence, and he just has the same style he's always had.
After this team, you obviously then went... Oh, I actually have one more question about G2. I forgot this. This is another weird detail. It's actually an angle that no one has on when you got booted, right? Assuming results are why you got kicked out, right? 2 of the bad results, the really bad ones, was you were at the major, but you didn't make the playoffs. And then after that, you had the IEM Dallas, right? Both these eliminations were just losses to Furia. And everyone remembers Furia was on the rise up, right? Was there something special about this Furia tip? Were they a hard team to match up with or something? Because this team landed you 2 big losses.
No, I think just the G2 and majors, like I feel like the pressure was even more immense, and after losing against Furia, it could have been any team, I felt like, but
right.
Art pushed behind B doors. I still remember this like it was yesterday, and
Sure.
he ended up screwing us the round and eventually the major. I mean, we didn't deserve it. We didn't play as good as we should have been playing. But the thing is that wait, I completely lost it. Can you repeat what you said?
It was about losing to Furia. Was there anything special they did?
No, I don't think it was anything special with the team at all. But I do remember that in Dallas, I got the memo that I might be out of the team. So maybe that affected something. But I knew in Dallas, I got the vibe, and I wasn't naive like I was in ENCE.
All right.
And I kind of could read between the lines that after the season is over, so summer season, Cologne was the last tournament, it might be that they're searching for a replacement. And I was happy about it. They were up front, and I still thought that I can still show what I'm capable of, and let's make a couple deep runs, and I'm gonna keep my job, so to say. But I ended up getting booted, and I feel like Furia for us, or this major and Dallas, I don't think we were thinking about the team at all. I just felt like we just lost to ourselves, you know.
Right. In this esports world, it can seem like everyone's against you, but I've always got the Illuminati, my Patreon community, riding with me. And it is thanks to the support of the following people, this video and all of them on my channel are made possible. Matt Pugnaccio Rakula, Ahmed Haju, Frisky, Tosh, Jensen Gore, Animosity, Toucan, Tobias Bernasconi. If you've ever watched my videos, you know now I'm going to give a massive shout out to Jerky's Minion, the main man. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want teasers? Find out who the upcoming interview guests are. Maybe you want to ask me a question. I tend to answer them at length in my video AMA. Do you want to take part in one of those dinner discussions where we talk about what you're interested in esports? Well, if any of these perks or more appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Illuminati today, where in the description box below is a Patreon link.